Smoak.
We were going to have Chris Level on yesterday and even today to discuss Texas Tech athletics, but we have to start with the tragedy of his cell phone. Chris joins us now on 365 Sports. So what did you do at lunch yesterday?
I didn't. It was my old phone. It went to the bottom of some water, and so it was unrecoverable. So when you were trying to call me yesterday, I was in the process of trying to get a new one, backing up, and it was just it took 9 hours, I think, for these. I mean, it's just a nightmare. So yeah, totally helpless feeling. But as you put it, David, as you told me, you're like, man, it sounds like you got a little peace on this day, but it's not how I viewed it. I felt totally helpless and was wondering what I was missing and who's trying to get a hold of me, and it was just a bit of a nightmare.
It's not like you were you're not in the mountains where you don't have cell phone because you're on vacation.
Right here in Lubbock, Texas, man. Right here in Lubbock, Texas.
Hey,
it was an accident, but all's well.
Where would you put? We have the incoming schools of UCF, Houston, Cincinnati, and also Brigham Young, and they all have their different fan bases. UCF has one that can be very much like Fire Ranch if you step on the wrong part of the hill. But where would you put Texas Tech's fan base, the personality, the atmosphere, the loyalty among now 14 teams in the Big 12?
That's look, I think that is a loaded question to start off things with. I think Tech's fan base is very passionate. I think they are a bit crazy at times. Maybe, I don't know if the right word is inappropriate at times, but I think that they are. Look, they care. There's a little. I think redneck to the fan base, but there's also a lot of part of the fan base that's very, loyal and I'm going to use the word classy, but I think that every fan base is different and people are probably rolling their eyes when I use the word class or redneck in the same sentence, but that's just kind of how most fan bases are. But yeah, this thing can get rowdy. I mean, certainly. And I think that's a good thing. If you're a coach at a program here, that's the way you want it to be. I mean, I used to have conversations with Chris Beard when he was the basketball coach, and he would be like, he's like, the fan base here. He goes, it toes the line. He goes, it's kind of perfect. He goes, you got the folks that kind of that are like on the good side, but he goes, you got your crazy ones too. And he goes, the mix is just kind of I like it because it's very unique from that standpoint.
Chris, there's obviously a lot of excitement bubbling up around Lubbock, Texas right now. It's a recruiting season at the moment, so camps are going on. And, we know a lot of that staff and the job they did here at Baylor a couple years back, but it's been impressive to see them just kind of hit the ground running and build off, those seeds they planted when they took the job over to begin with. What have you seen in terms of the recruiting side of things and how they've built up that part of the department and the success they've had so far? And how would you compare it to maybe some of the successful stretches that Tech's had previously? Is there a noticeable difference in what's being done right now, or is there just kind of rejuvenation of what can be done out in Lubbock?
I think that's why Joey is here. I think had recruiting gone well here over the last decade, there isn't, the transition from Tuberville to Cliff to Coach Wells and then to Joe, you're in the spin cycle a bit. And it's because the recruiting part had fallen short. I think, Mike, when he was here, he had a lot of stability. And I think that was the genius of Mike, is not just the X's and O's, but we all know those staffs that he had with him here, and we know where they all went. And he would surround himself with brilliant people, and then they stayed here for several years at a time together. And so you build some continuity. And I think in the last decade, you just haven't really had that. And I think the recruiting has suffered because, one staff comes in, well, they want their linebackers to be this size and this fast, and we want our offensive tackle to be this way, and we want a quarterback that can do this. And then the next staff comes in, and they've got a different idea. And so it just becomes a problem. But Joey's task when he got this thing, which is, again, I think that's what Kirby and everybody was so excited about Joey, is fixing the recruiting component. And what we've gotten is, you guys know this, an extremely energetic guy. I mean, the guy, he's a vibe, I guess as the young people would say. he's as energetic on a Tuesday afternoon as he is on a Saturday night in a full stadium. I mean, it never, it never changes. And I think that's infectious. And I think that it spills over into the recruiting component too. And I know you guys know that, but he's got a great process with the way that they vet kids and evaluate kids, and they believe in it. And it's something that Matt Rule taught him, honestly. And Joey would be the first one to tell you that, as they, incorporate track times. Can you dunk a basketball? Are you a good hurdler? I mean, there's all kinds of things they look at that checks a box for them on the way that they identify a prospect. And it's an arm length, the wrist size, whatever, and if you're trying to break a tie, if you check some of these boxes, they're like, we're going to roll on you. And we don't care what you're ranked. If you're a 2-star or a 5-star, whatever, you check these boxes. We think and that's what won him a Big 12 championship at Baylor. That's what, and he has the same process. And so it's been very impressive, and it was sorely needed. This football program hasn't been very good in the last decade. They had some nice seasons, but overall, it's just been a problem, and I think they're trying to fix it.
Do you feel like the Tech? We hear about Texas and Oklahoma and NIL and what they have and the setup, but do you feel like Tech is probably even further ahead than most people can realize with how they have been able to jump headfirst into it?
They were. I think there was some very smart people on the onset that got on the same page very early on, and then I think Joey had some input there too in trying to be fair, which is very difficult in this space, and trying to be let's take care of everybody equally, and stuff like that, which is Pollyanna-ish in some ways. And they didn't really go by anybody. They just basically said, here's what we're going to do for our football players. And now it's spilled over into the women's basketball team, the baseball team. They're starting to do some things for the track athletes. Men's basketball is going to get a similar deal. And men's basketball, it's funny, you said about NIL. Football and men's basketball were very involved with NIL last year, but they were completely opposite in how it was organized. And one of them was a disaster. And I think it spilled over into the court, or onto the court. And the product was not very good. And whether that had anything to do with it or not, I don't know. But they tried to buy a team last year in basketball, and it was not good. And football, they didn't care if you were the starting cornerback or you're the backup punt returner or whatever it was. This is what you get. If you want to go do a separate deal off on your own or whatever, knock yourself out. And that's the way they did it. And now they've kind of increased the way they're doing it, where they're giving more of the walk-on type guys some of that money. But again, everybody gets the same. And I think that, just being organized and on the same page with how to do it and everything like that, I think is giving them a bit of a leg up. And they have by no means set the bar or anything like that. But it's worked out here, and it's worked well.
Chris, Tyler Shuck named the starting quarterback. I guess that was just a few days ago. I don't think that comes as a surprise to really anybody, but what were your thoughts? What did you kind of glean from, the quarterback competition itself, and just your thoughts on Shuck as, obviously a very seasoned guy, hard year last year for him, the injury and all of that, but what are your kind of expectations and thoughts surrounding that decision?
Yeah, it wasn't a surprise. I think we all knew that he'd won the job after the spring was over. It wasn't anything that Baron Morton did. I just think Tyler, when he's healthy, he's better. He's older. He's about 4 years older. He's got a lot more experience, and his only knock is just, hasn't been able to stay healthy. And, most of the quarterbacks that started the season last year in the Big 12 they all missed a game or a handful of games or half the season or whatever. And I think that's just the nature of the position. You better have more than one guy at that spot. But Tyler, he weighs about 235 now. I think all the NFL folks that come through here rave about him and basically tell him and the staff he's an NFL guy, because he's 6'3", 6'4", about 235, very, very intelligent. He's an alpha. And the only knock is that he hasn't been able to put a full season together. And so that's really his biggest challenge, is his biggest, what's the old saying about your biggest ability is availability. And that's really where the next thing is for him, is can he do it for a sustained period? But there's a ton of excitement about this year's team, and I think Tyler deserves a ton of credit for that because of the 4-0 finish last year. I mean, he was the guy under center for that winning streak. And they're sitting there at 4-5. You've started 3 different quarterbacks. He finally gets back right and healthy and starts, and he beats Kansas. He goes to Iowa State, beats Iowa State, and then he beats Oklahoma, beats Ole Miss. And so I think that he kind of set this team up for, some success and some excitement and some anticipation. But that's why it was going to be hard for him to get beat out on the job because of the way he finished last season.
Facilities, the money is pouring in. We mentioned NIL, but that's the way it is. You have to keep up with the trends, and Texas Tech, of course, is going through that massive construction at the stadium. Your thoughts? What do you get to probably see it maybe daily? What's going on right now? What does it look like?
Well, I'm fascinated to see how quickly. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like this year. It's kind of sad that you have to go through these growing pains when you're building something like that. You have to have a season where there's going to be construction going on, bottom line. And you have this big game with Oregon coming up, and they're not going to really have one end of the stadium completed. But it's a $250 million project that started out as a $200 million project. And and they've decided that let's do this, let's do that. And they've kind of tweaked it and added to it. And it's the company that's doing it did some stuff at A&M. They've done some stuff for the Dallas Cowboys. They've done some stuff, I think, for the Yankees. And so they're really good at working on top of each other and getting it done right and quickly. But it's a massive project that will basically, it involves one end of the stadium. It involves, new turf and speakers and a new video board that's going to actually come with different video. I mean, there's going to be 3 new video boards total when it's all said and done and all that. But the main thing, I think, for like Joey and company is that it's a brand new football training facility that's 2 stories with a walkway that goes from that to the stadium. And I can't wait to see it, be finished. Parking is going to be a pain for the short term. But yeah, we're about 15 months away from that being completely finished. So this year is going to be a bit tricky. But yeah, it's 2 giant cranes that are, 10 stories tall that are, over there working. And so anyway, I'm like, where's the band supposed to sit? What are we doing like here in 3 months? Because it's not a lot of time between now and that season opener on September the 9th.
Maybe they can, and I know that's a rival. Back in the day, the A&M was able to destroy their stadium and build it up right during the offseason. They rebuilt Kyle Field in a matter of months.
Yeah.
But then again,
I don't. Yeah,
they have all the engineers, so that would not be a big
Correct.
problem for them. That
Absolutely,
Chris, I don't think you can discuss recruiting, can you?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can.
I wasn't sure because of your broadcast contact.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I want to make sure. If you can't, just say that. But what are the feelings on Lake Belton's wide receiver, Micah Hudson, who's an elite player? A lot of other schools are involved, but Texas Tech seems to be right there in the mix.
Yeah, he's supposed to be here this weekend, and I think Texas Tech feels great about it. I don't know that that's any guarantee that he ends up a Red Raider. I think Texas is probably, maybe the biggest competition. I think depending on who you read or who you believe or who you listen to, one of those 2 schools is the favorite. I mean, he's got everybody in the country that would like to be a part of that. I think Tech's done a really good job of building those relationships with him. He's been up here multiple times already and will be here in an official visit capacity this weekend. I think there was some thought that he would take the full, amount of time and maybe not decide ultimately or make it public anyway until mid-December or whenever early signing day is. But I think there's a lot of thought now that an announcement could come much sooner than that, and that he may want to get it over with before his season starts. So we'll see kind of what that looks like. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of expectation that the Red Raiders will be in that until the very end. But if he if he goes to Texas or somewhere else, it's not going to be a surprise. But I think obviously the Red Raiders have made him a priority, and I think the way people will talk about Micah is that he's a guy that he's not into bells and whistles. He wants to be treated. He doesn't want to be handed anything or promised anything. He's a normal kid. He's not looking for NIL money or anything like that. And I think he just wants to be treated like one of the fellas. And I think that Texas Tech's been able to tap into that. And so we'll kind of see what happens there.
Well, I got a chance to watch him last year when they scrimmaged. It was a three-team scrimmage at Midway, and he looks the part. I mean, the colors they wear almost looks like all those other great wide receivers that go to Ohio State, his size and the speed and all that. But he is the real deal, no question about it. We'll see how that eventually ends up. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Okay, I still can't believe you didn't enjoy life without a cell phone. I think that would be – I would probably die.
And that's sad that I didn't enjoy it, right? That's right. You're right. I should have embraced it. Instead, I was a mess, and that's not a good thing. So, yeah, maybe I need to listen to your words a bit louder.
All right, buddy. Thank you, Chris. Chris Level with us, RedRaidersports.com, part of men's basketball broadcast, also the football sidelines as well to cover Texas Tech athletics, football, basketball, and more.
I'd toss my phone into the Brazos